So June marks the second year of my electric unicycle adventure, and although something had changed, EUC has certainly gotten better over the past 2 years. For the most part, it remains a pretty niche sport. Even here in New York City, where we have a pretty active ridership, I'm still regularly questioned by curious onlooker as to what the strange contraption it is I'm riding. This is an electric unicycle. Despite being the largest of its kind, comparing to other personal electric transport like electric skateboard, scooter, or even electric bike, this thing has much better range and top speed than anything that is twice its price. About a year ago, I made a video on why I think the electric unicycle is the future of transport and why I thought that it never caught on. So much had happened within the past 12 months that I thought it worthwhile to revisit the subject. Not only had the world changed because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the electric unicycle fuel itself has shifted radically with the introduction of suspension to the latest batch of wheels. This week, while I still think that the electric unicycle is the revolution that we need, and while your friends still think that you're crazy, roll the intro! As always, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I had noticed a shift here in New York City with our e-skate group where more and more people are switching from electric skateboard and even scooter to electric unicycle. Likely since EUC generally have more range, better stability because of the larger tire and less maintenance, since with only a single wheel, they're simpler machines. You can only be passed by another wheel so many times before you start to think, maybe I ought to give it a try. But all of this remain inside of a small circle of bleeding edge enthusiasts. For the general public, there have been a huge uptick of interest in personal electric vehicles because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In urban areas where the infection rate had been the highest, people had traditionally relied on public transport to get around. This probably seemed like a much better alternative than to stick yourself in a little metal box with a bunch of random stranger underground, no less. Interest, that is, for everything except for the electric unicycle, and honestly I've been a bit curious as to why that is. To start, let's talk about the iPad, which if you are old enough, you'll remember that when it was introduced back in 2010, it was met with widespread skepticism and inappropriate joke about feminine hygiene product. And let's not forget that by that point, having launched the iPhone 3 years prior to the absolute adoration of the public, Steve Jobs and Apple should have been in as solid of a position as any modern tech company to elicit just a bit more faith in their work, but that wasn't the case. I think the reason why the iPad did not exactly capture the imagination of the public was not because it was somehow flawed or that Steve was losing his touch when it comes to his fame, reality distortion feel, but rather because of this. The ThinkPad tablet, which was what I had at the time, was more powerful, had more storage, plus a bigger screen. It is also a bit thicker and heavier, but so what? What I failed to recognize was that those little things made it sufficiently uncomfortable that I rarely, if ever, use it for its intended purpose, which is a tablet, which it's actually not very good at, and when a thing can't fulfill its intended purpose, I call it broken. Have you ever used a laptop on your lap? We have come to expect and accept broken things. And when the iPad was introduced, we assumed that it was just another tablet and that it would be broken in the same way, and so we weren't really interested. Now, I'm not implying that laptops don't work. It's just that there's a mismatch with what they're intended for and what they actually do. But how is that relevant to electric unicycle? Because analog are important since it is the only way we can understand experiences that is not our own. And when there's significant divergence between a popular analog versus a new thing, it makes it that much harder for the public to overcome their preconceived notion of what a new invention will be good for. And the analog for what we ride is this, an unicycle, and it is designed for jugglers and circus clowns.
It could also work to our advantage. For instance, I don't think any policeman would ever issue a speeding citation to any of us, regardless of how fast it is that we're actually riding. Imagine him or her having to justify that one to a judge.
Officer Smith, you claim that the defendant was doing 40 in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. Can you tell the court what is the vehicle he was riding at the time? A unicycle, you said. I didn't realize that juggling was possible at that sort of speed.
There is, of course, nothing wrong with electric unicycle remaining just a niche pursuit for the few of us. However, there are certain advantages of having a growing market. Aside from my selfish desire of getting more views for my videos, a larger market also translates to better pricing, more selection, and just flat out better product for all of us.
I attribute the latest development that everyone is buzzing about, the addition of suspension to electric unicycle, directly to the fact that as slow as it was, the market is growing, and that companies like KingSong and InMotion saw sufficient potential return to invest the time and money into research to make such a leap. And that is just the beginning. Imagine convenient retail locations where you can try the wheel before you buy and get quick local support on repairs and upgrades. Tours catering to electric unicycle rider in exotic parts of the world, or even my own personal wish of having EUCs with removable batteries and network of battery exchange stations, so I never had to worry about charging or traveling with a wheel.
Yes, electric unicycle is hard to learn, however, so is snowboarding. It's just a question of infrastructure. For instance, for $150, I can get a bus ride, a lift ticket, all the equipment rental I need, as well as a lesson at the nearby mountain, while still be able to make it back in time for dinner on the same day at 6 p.m.
The real challenge remains that, like the iPad, EUC is something you'll only get if you're willing to put in the time and resources to learn it. There is two parts to any product: what it can functionally achieve and what it represents. There are industries like apparel that is almost entirely built on the latter. You don't need much to keep you dry and warm, but oh boy, would that $600 LL Bean Gore-Tex jacket make you look like you're ready for Mount Everest.
And the look like part is actually key, I think. You don't have to be a mountain climber to recognize or even aspire to be one. We all see particular news or media of challenges associated with mountain climbing without being actually part of the sport.
Electric unicycle, on the other hand, is too new and niche to have any sorts of media presence. Seeing someone else in the streets on an EUC meant nothing to the public.
You need stories to create meanings, but to create stories, you would need a grand challenge.
During the 1920s, the most popular motorsports are Grand Prix, where cars race from town to town, wowing crowds with their high-speed runs. But the auto manufacturer realized that, as exciting as the race were, they did not convey the appropriate messages they need.
As much as the public enjoy the speed, excitement, and spectacle of those races, the crucial thing that would actually sway them into purchasing a car for their own are the knowledge that what they're buying is a well-engineered and dependable machine that is built to last.
That desire to prove that cars can be built to be reliable enough to endure the harshest conditions gave birth to the 24 Hours of Le Mans, an endurance race where vehicles compete to cover the maximum amount of distance in a set periods of time. And over the past 100 years, not only have Le Mans become one of the most influential races in motorsports and create some of the most enduring legends, it also transformed the motor industry and established some of the most well-known brands to this day.
What could be the grand challenge that would inspire the transformation of the electric unicycle sport?
I wish I knew. I had always enjoyed watching great variety of races, from downhill mountain bike urban challenges to motocross hill climb, and I do have my own theories as to what would make for an awesome electric unicycle race.
It would have to be hard. If everyone completed the challenge, then it's time to move the goalpost like to the next country over. Highlight the strength of the platform. If you can complete the course on anything else faster and better, then you're really not proving the right thing. And the last requirement is going to be the toughest. It will need to be an absolutely spectacular race. People have to be willing to travel from across the world just to ride the course.
Now this may sound a bit out there for many people, but I am only asking because I feel like EUC is finally at a point where we are ready for a grand challenge. We just have to find it. By the way, I'm completely serious. If you get a course that you think would make for an awesome place to race electric unicycles, make a video and show us, and I'll be happy to highlight your spot and give your channel a shout out in my future videos. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And as much as we all love Electric Unicycle, the only way for us to get better wheels is to grow as a community. So please tell your friends and teach them how to ride and get them hooked. And if you feel an overwhelming urge to give a few dollars to a complete internet strangers, please check out the link below to my Patreon in the video description. By the way, I started another channel to talk about my obsession with design and architecture. And if you are curious about what your office may look like when you finally make it back after reopening, check out my latest video.